So my brothers and my sisters, as we embrace this urgency of creating the beloved community, now is the time to be loved. Love means understanding, redemptive goodwill toward all which seeks nothing in return. So be loved by implementing the demands of justice to eliminate the school to prison pipeline that has so many black children entrapped. Be loved by correcting voting policies that seek to suppress the votes of millions of black and brown people. Be loved and implement the demands of justice by transforming a society that is disproportionately violent toward black lives, including black transgendered lives and indigenous lives. Be loved and correct false narratives and economic policies that continue to divide and pit poor and working class black and white people against each other. Be loved and implement demands of justice where systems and structures are deconstructed and lead the way of living in community that reimagines just, humane, equitable, and sustainable policies, practices, and behaviors. Love your enemies. Bless them that curse you. Do good to them who hate you, and pray for them that despitefully use you and abuse you. Be loved and do justice and love mercy and walk humbly with our God.
Students with King serves as the King Center's flagship engagement platform for elementary, middle, and high school students, highlighting the legacies of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Mrs. Coretta Scott King, and the impact of the 20th century American Civil Rights Movement. Our dynamic and interactive programming has reached over 1 million students worldwide. Our core learning programs introduce students to the philosophy of Kingian nonviolence, coined Nonviolence 365, and provide important lessons about how they can apply nonviolence in their immediate environments. Whether you're an educator who is looking for ways to bring the King legacy into your classroom, a student who wants to learn more about this powerful moral movement, or a parent who wants to get your child involved in character building and literacy development activities, Students with King is your one-stop shop for unique lesson plans, teaching resources, educational field trips, and other opportunities to engage with the history of the American Civil Rights Movement and its powerful leaders. We look forward to engaging with you and your students. Together we can build the next generation of compassionate, courageous, and conscientious leaders.
Good morning, guys, and welcome to the first Students with King of 2023. Man, it is going to be an amazing and impactful year of Students with King. I am your moderator, Tyreek Wynn. And first, let me also say happy Black History Month. It is Black History Month, and we are recognizing our ancestors and amazing people who have made an amazing contribution to our society and our country. And of course, it is time for the state roll call, the classroom roll call, the city roll call. We want to know where you guys are tuning in from this morning. I see we got somebody, Jessica Bonds, Oakland Meadow 4-5 ASD class. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. We got Pia Smith, Avondale Elementary, 4th grade, Avondale Estates, Georgia. Awesome. Thank you so much for tuning in. And we also have Amanda Ramirez, Mrs. Ramirez, kindergarten class, Edison, New Jersey. Okay, Edison, come through. We love it. And we also have Maria Fergus, Poseblow, Washington. I hope I'm saying that right. Oh, that city kind of stumped me a little bit. Okay. And then we also have Chelsea Gayer, Miss Axon's 4th grade class in West Columbia, South Carolina. Fantastic. Well, we appreciate you guys so much for tuning in. We also want you guys, we have a survey for Students with King. And so we want to take you guys to this QR code here. And this is where you can complete the survey for Students with King. And this helps us improve and make things better and lets us know how we're doing as a program within the King Center doing Students with King. Well, like I said, guys, we have an amazing episode today for you. And I'm going to be bringing on a very special individual, and her name is Carmen Agra Deedy, and she will be reading her children's book, Wombat Said Come In. And the book teaches the powerful rewards of sharing, generosity, and their abilities to transform our lives and the lives of those in need. Well, let's go ahead and bring on Miss Carmen now. Miss Carmen, how are you? Thanks for joining us.
Good morning. I'm happy to be here. That's how I am. How are you, Tyree?
I'm great. Thank you so much for joining us on Students with King, the first Students with King of 2023. Man, we are so excited to have you. So you're going to be reading your amazing book. So let's go ahead and get into the book reading.
All right. And hello, children. Wombat Said Come In. Written by Carmen Agra Deedy. Illustrated by the fabulous, the magnificent, the very gifted Brian Lees. Here we go, children. The story's about to begin. Settle in. Wombat was not worried. No, not a tittle. Fire had passed over his burrow before. Best, he thought, to shelter under my crazy quilt until the trouble passes. But, as it often does, trouble came knocking. Wally-oo, Wombat! Outside was his friend Wallaby, eyes wide with fright. Help, Wombat! I can't reach my home. May I stay with you for a while? Wombat hesitated only for one tick of the clock. Then Wombat said, Come in. Wombat said, Come in. From smoke and din and howling wind, come in, my friend, come in. And here he comes. A grateful wallaby hopped inside and was soon twitching in his sleep under a certain crazy quilt. No worries, thought Wombat. I'll have a cup of tea with my favorite chair instead. Yeah. Well, as he lowered himself into that chair, he heard, woo-hoo, ha, ha, ha. Let's see who it is now. Kookaburra. Kookaburra was at the door. He looked scorched and bad-tempered. Dreadful out here, Wombat. Fire's on the march. Spare a room for an old friend. Well, I do have quite a few rooms, thought Wombat. And so Wombat said, Come in. Wombat said, Come in. From smoke and din and howling wind, come in, my friend, come in. With a laugh of purest joy, Kookaburra commandeered Wombat's favorite chair. Kettle on, Wombat, could use some tea. Where are my manners? Thought Wombat. Before he could fetch his slippers, he heard, Help! I can't! Achoo! Who is it now? Without warning, in tumbled Platypus, and out of Platypus tumbled a jumble of words. Oh, Wombat, I can't find my way, and I've lost my shoe, and there's smoke in my nostrils. Wombat patted his pockets for a handkerchief. He found 3. Platypus took them all. May I stay with you, dear Wombat? It's so hot. Heat, hotness. Oh, the hotness of it all. How, thought Wombat, does Platypus talk so much and say so little? But there was only one thing Wombat could think to do. I'll bet you all know what it is before the page turns. Wombat said, Come in. Wombat said, Come in. From smoke and din and howling wind, come in, my friend, come in. Already in, said Platypus. Then she brightened. Ooh, slippers. As Platypus patted away in Wombat's favorite slippers, she trilled, Tea and toast, please, Wombat. I'll be in my room. Tea does make a hard day easier to bear, thought Wombat. His clock chimed in agreement. But you've already guessed, haven't you? That poor Wombat didn't finish preparing that tea and toast. Help! Wombat rushed toward the cry. Stuck, gasped Koala as he tugged on a sooty eucalyptus branch. Do you see it there? Sounding a bit less friendly than he intended, Wombat said, "Oh, come in." Wombat said, "Come in! From smoke and din and howling wind, come in, my friend, come in." But leave that smelly twig outside, he muttered. Not smelly, corrected Koala as he gave it that branch, a yank. It plowed into the burrow. Down went the clock with a clang, lang, lang. Oh, this day, worried Wombat, is getting quite out of hand. You'd like tea, I suppose, he huffed. No, thanks, murmured Koala. Only Liptus. Well, I must have some tea, thought Wombat, with 4 lumps of sugar. This sweet thought restored Wombat to his best self. But then he heard, Wombat bat! Wombat bat! Sugar glider? Fire, fire! Squeaked Sugar glider. Come in. Oh, well, thought that Wombat. What's one more? And Wombat said, come in. Wombat said, come in. From smoke and din and howling wind, come in, my thwack. Sugar glider took a flying leap onto Wombat's snout. From there, Sugar glider launched inside and smashed into the hat rack, from which he fell onto a nearby tea tray, where he tipped over a bowl of sugar cubes. Sugar glider, do not touch. What do you think is going to happen when the page turns? Too late. Sugar glider had snarfled up every last sugar cube. Wombat did not trust himself to speak. Look at the cheeks. Seeing his distress, Sugar glider leapt onto Wombat's shirt, pulled a gooey cube from his mouth, and dropped it into Wombat's paw. Then he scrabbled into a pocket. Sleep, sleep, he cooed. Wombat studied the sticky gift and thought, what an odd day this has been. But they'll surely all go home soon, right? Wombat was mistaken. Oh, if you've ever had guests, you know it can get pretty busy in the house. Thank you. Uh-oh. I think we missed a page. A couple of pages. Tyree, we're on the wrong page. Hold on, children. It's coming. Magic Mike, who knows IT like no one else, is going to be fixing this in a second.
You, while he sorts out those technical difficulties, if you have the book next to you, you can continue on.
I will do that.
I can go from there. Yeah, that'd be fantastic.
And I did this the whole summer of the pandemic. That's what I did. Was I read the book and I would hold it up. So here we go. This is where I work. Remember, children? It's a house full of company. And it's really fun to look through that with a really good eye. Now, days passed. Then one morning, Wombat awoke to an odd smell. No, it's more like a smell that isn't, thought Wombat. Look at this wonderful picture. Look. Look at him. Isn't he fabulous? Now, if you look carefully, you might see something over here. Is that a little tail hiding? What do you think, Tyreek?
Looks like a tail.
Uh-huh. He tiptoed past his sleeping guest. He peeked outside the burrow. He is just the sweetest looking little creature. There he is. And now, Wombat said, wait for it, go home. Wombat said, go home. It's safe for you to rove and roam and time for me to be alone. Skedaddle shoo, go home. They were happy to. They missed their own homes now. Look at this. I'm going to go really slowly. Look at that. There they go. There they go. There they go. But if you look carefully, do you see anything in Wombat's pocket?
Yep, I can see it.
And now our next to last page. Thank you, said a small voice. Wombat frowned. He plucked Sugar Glider from his pocket. Go home. Sugar Glider sighed. No home to go to. Wombat's ears twitched. His teeth clacked. He made an odd wickering sound. Here, can you see that there?
Yeah.
And finally, Wombat said, come in. Of course he did. It's what Wombat said.
Wow, that was fantastic. Thank you so much for that amazing reading. And let me just tell you this, the way you read that, I felt like I was one of the characters in the story. Like, yeah, it was really inviting, and I just felt like I was there and I was part of it. So I mean, yeah, you did a fantastic job with the reading in there.
Well, part of what we want is for when parents and grandparents and teachers read, and aunts and uncles, let's not forget them, to really let themselves go and have fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's awesome. Laura, she says, "Hooray, Wombat!" Awesome. That's awesome. And guys, if you have questions for Miss Carmen, please go ahead and put those in the comment section, and I'll do my best to get to as many of those as possible before we sign off for today. Annette Oliver, great, thank you, with a heart emoji. Thank you, Annette, for watching. This is great. So let me ask you this. As far as this book is concerned, what are some of the key takeaways? What's the central theme that you want everybody to take away from the story?
Well, I was a refugee, and I was taken in here in this country long time ago. I'm carbon datable, children. I'm very old, but the takeaway is sometimes being kind is not comfortable. Sometimes opening your heart, your home, your mind to people who are in need or who are different isn't easy. It's uncomfortable. You're not sure what to do. Sometimes it puts you out. That's the way it's supposed to be.
Wow. Yeah, I think that's fantastic, because I think a lot of times, I mean, if you look at our society, there are a lot of people in need. And I think if we can do good as people who are, more fortunate and stuff, we can help out somebody in need. I think that's a great thing.
And it doesn't, sometimes we go, but I'm going to have to go out of my way, or I'm going to, yeah. I had a wonderful Cuban dad who would say, if it doesn't hurt just a little bit, it's not giving. And he meant by that, you give sometimes when it's not comfortable. And I love Wombat. To me, Wombat's an old guy who just wants to be alone in his burrow, but there's trouble and he's got a big heart. So all right, come in. Oh, for Pete's sake, come in. Finally, he's like, when are they leaving? Yeah.
And then Liz Garner says, we love the voices you use. Do you practice it a lot, or were those voices you heard as you wrote the book? That's a great question. Thank you for that.
That's a great question. I do hear their voices in my head when I write them, when I write characters. But remember, I tell stories to kids. So when I go visit schools, and I do 150 schools a year for 34 years now. I know I was old.
That's awesome.
I tell lots of stories. So I use lots of voices because the kids love the voices. And they don't have to be perfect, So remember that, teachers, parents, they don't have to be perfect.
Awesome. And then Jason says, our class loved the story. Thank you for taking the time to read to us. Miss McClellan's third grade class, Pittner Elementary, Ackworth, Georgia. Thank y'all.
Hello, third grade at Pittner Elementary, Miss McLaughlin's class. Thank you.
And then Alexa Rose, hello from Scholars Academy. Okay, welcome, Scholars. We appreciate y'all joining us. Ruth says, why did Wombat invite the sugar glider in?
You mean at the very end? Because obviously he invited everybody in. Because Sugar Glider touched on his kindest, the kindest part of Wombat. See, Wombat knew that Sugar Glider had nowhere to go. He couldn't be Wombat and not invite him in. He knew it was good and it was right. Listen to that little voice when it comes to you, children.
Oh, yeah, no doubt about that. Margaret, has Mrs. Deedy ever visited Australia? We love you, Mrs. Deedy. Oh, that's a good one.
Oh, I would love, my husband goes every other year. My husband's a musician. And he goes, and I keep saying, I'm going to go one year. I'm going to go one year. So if I go with him, I would love to maybe meet some of the children out there.
Oh, yeah. I'm pretty sure it's
Check face to face. Yeah.
Okay. A good deal. Awesome. And then Allison, our kindergarten class loved your reading.
Oh, hello, kinder. Hello, littles. I love the littles.
Oh, yeah. The little kids. Oh, they're awesome. Sharon Lil, one of our dedicated viewers. We appreciate you. How many books have you written, Lamar?
15, I think. And there are a couple more coming. And then I also I've written for like Highlights for Children and school publishing like National Geographic and McGraw-Hill. I'm old. I've been writing a while.
That's awesome. So any sneak peek as to what's coming out next?
I have a book coming with Scholastic called Carina Felina about a parrot who falls in love with a cat.
Really?
It's a magic tale. And then The Peanut Man with Margaret Quinlan Books, Peachtree Publishing. In 24, it's about my journey here from Cuba as a little girl.
Wow, that's awesome. Okay. And then Sydney says, how long does it take you to write a book, Miss Eccles' first grade class?
Great question. Great question. I'll make it pithy. Children, do you know how many revisions, rewrites a picture book takes? Look how thin it is. Thinner than your average peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And it will take 15, 20, or even 30 rewrites and could take 6 months to a year before it goes to the illustrator.
Mm-hmm. Wow. And I gotta ask you about that illustrator, because let me tell you, I was looking at some of those illustrations, and those are probably some of the best illustrations I have seen. Who does these?
Brian Lees. He won a Caldecott honor just a couple of years ago. Brian is this is going to sound funny. He's a really deep person. He's a person who has a big interior life. And that's an artist. And then he brings that to his art. And he also has the technique. I mean, all these are done by hand. I know. Isn't he fabulous? So you guys look at his books. Look up the Bats in the Library, Bats at the Beach, all his books. You'll love them.
Okay, yeah, we'll have to check those out. And Teeny Jones, Miss Jones' second grade class, wants to know if this book is part of a series. Mm-hmm. And are there any more stories about Wombat? They want to see more Wombat, it sounds like.
What could happen to Wombat next? I may need to get some email, some letters from you guys on my website about that, about what ideas you have. What could happen to Wombat now?
Oh yeah, we want to know. Yeah, we anticipate.
Or Wombat and Sugar Glider, because they're a team now.
Yeah. Okay. Anna says, what is your favorite book that you've written so far?
Every single school I go to. That is the first question those kids ask. Every one of you. All right, listen, my darlings. Having a favorite book when you're a writer is like having a favorite kid. If you had one, you could never tell. However, I will say that I have a tremendous amount of love for a certain furry Australian marsupial. And I also love a little cockroach called Martina, the beautiful cockroach. Mm-hmm. Check it out in the library. Free. Tax dollars at work.
Okay, awesome. That's good stuff there. Yvonne Thomas, thank you so much, King Center, for having us. We enjoyed it. Miss Thomas, second grade gifted class, Samatan ES. Thank you, guys. We appreciate you as well.
Miss Thomas.
Miss Patel, why did you choose to be a writer?
I didn't. It chose me. See, I have dyslexia. Oh, and
that's a big testimony.
And yeah. And I've been writing for many, many years. But when I was little, what I loved was to listen to stories, which is why I tell stories to children when I go to schools. That's what I do. Because some people process differently. And it wasn't until I was a mom that I had an idea for a story. And I wrote my first book and I sent it to a little publishing house, which is not a little publishing house anymore. Mm-hmm. It's wonderful. Peachtree Publishing, to Margaret Quinlan. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And they accepted it. And I'm telling you, it was like, man, like a freight train. It's the last thing I expected. It changed the trajectory of my life. And I had a lot to learn. And you know what? All these years later, I still have a lot to learn.
Yeah, and going on any journey, we always have a lot to learn. You can never know everything. And I do have to ask this before I get to Karen's question. I do have to ask this. You mentioned being dyslexic. Can you kind of talk to us a little bit about how you overcame that obstacle?
Okay, yeah. So I was learning a second language. I was also having trouble with the words because English has silent letters, diphthongs, things that OUGH. And I wasn't diagnosed until I was 28, and I took myself someplace to be diagnosed because something was off. I love to read, but it took me a long time, very slow. One of the ways I overcame it, and I'm mostly it's my hearing, the way I hear sounds. They're called phonemes, little tiny sounds. Tomato, tornado, same word.
Really?
Except I've been reading it for most of my life, so I know what an R sounds like. I know what an O. So there are many kinds of dyslexia. I would say this to the children. Children, if you're having trouble reading, if reading makes you sleepy, if letters move around, if you have to keep going back to reread, for goodness sakes, tell somebody. Tell a grown-up, tell a teacher, tell a parent, tell a grandparent, tell your double-second cousin Bob. Just keep telling them until somebody listens and somebody helps you. Because if the second language refugee with dyslexia can grow up to be an editor and write books, my darlings, you can do anything.
Wow. That is very inspirational. I appreciate you for saying that. And back to Karen's question. From Flowery Branch Elementary, have you ever thought about writing a book with a romance between a dog and a lizard?
Oh, you know what? I think that I don't know who came up with that. There's a child behind this question. I think that child needs to write that story because when you come up with that idea, your brain is saying, hey, we're onto something. Let's do something with this. So maybe you should try it first, Flowery Branch.
Oh, yeah. And I'm glad you said that because children, if you guys don't know, there is no age limit to where you can write a book. So if you have a book idea, step out on faith, write that book. Kim, hi, what was your first book and where did you get the inspiration? Mrs. Kai's second grade class in Edison, New Jersey. Appreciate you guys.
Hello, Edison, New Jersey, Mrs. Kai's second graders. My first book, Agatha's Featherbed. Not just another wild goose story. It's about a lady who has a shop in New York, and she orders a featherbed, and 6 pink naked geese show up on her windowsill, like they would. So it was my first book, and it's been very sweet, and it was my beginning.
Wow. So have you found like writing books you have a few out now, but like have you found that is it easier as you write more and more? Like is it easier than that first one?
Okay, so this is like a grown-up conversation almost. So I'm going to try and make it like kid-friendly. There are levels of mastery. And when you first start something, what you have is so much excitement and passion and inspiration, but you don't know craft yet. Craft is what you get when you do something a lot. Say you're working with pottery, you got to throw a lot of clay before you come up with a great pot. But you're excited because you're learning something new. And to me, it's just as hard because in many ways to write now, because I think, okay, I've done this long enough. This could be better. This needs to be better. So I keep returning to the craft to try and make it better, a better word. I don't need that character. Did I check all the conventions? My darling children, check your conventions, indents, paragraphs, commas, and
check it. Yeah, definitely got to check it.
Different kind of hard.
Yeah. And then this will be our last question. And this is from Margaret Bray. And this is from White Sulphur Elementary. Have you written books with other authors? And do you know your illustrators before they draw your pictures?
Those are 2 great questions. Oh, my goodness. Okay, let me see if I can do it quickly. I have written one book with another author. It was the most fun I have ever had writing a book. It's a chapter book. My only chapter book so far. It's called The Cheshire Cheese Cat. And it's in like 18 languages or something. Yeah, I know. And it had like 3-star reviews. It's a sleeper here. But in Europe, it's big. The Cheshire Cheese Cat is about a friendship between a mouse and a cat. You can tell that I like people who are different, kind of connecting. And I wrote it with Randall Wright, brilliant writer, and we had a blast. I don't have time to tell you more, but that was a lot of fun. Do you know your illustrators before they draw the pictures? Sometimes. The way it works normally, and this is really important for probably for the young writers, is the publisher chooses the illustrator. You do not. There's a long explanation behind that, but essentially that is their job. So when you write, say, a picture book, children or grownups, you don't send it in with somebody's art. You only send in your story. They choose. See, they have a stable of artists they've worked with. They have people who are expert at saying what artist matches this story, whose style is perfect. Now, as you've done this a long time, you can request people. And Brian and I had requested one another. We had wanted to work together a long time.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, and it's happened with a couple of people.
Wow, that is awesome. Well, Miss Carmen, thank you so much for joining us on this amazing episode of Students with King Reading Corner, our first one of 2023. We appreciate you so much for joining us. And hey, who knows? We may have you back for some of your other books. So
I'm happy to be here anytime. Thank you. You've been fabulous to read.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Miss Carmen. And guys, I'm going to go ahead and bring in Mr. Donald, who is going to go ahead and close us out. Thank you so much, King Center, for allowing me to be your moderator. I'm Tyreek Wynn. Make sure you follow me on Instagram, TyreekWynn.iHeartMedia. I'll turn it over to Mr. Donald. How are you?
Hey, Tyreek, thank you. And thank you, Carmen. What a great Student with King Reading Corner. And we have more coming to you. We're working on another one for Black History Month, as well as we have a special one in March. So stay tuned on March the 7th. Please tune in. We have a special reading from Dr. Bernice A. King, the daughter of Dr. King. She will be reading her book. So we have a lot of excitement. I hope you enjoyed yourself. We ran out of time because we had so many questions. So I'm going to wrap it up by saying thank you to everyone who joined us. And thank you for all the teachers that registered today. As you can tell from the story, it was extremely interesting, and the kids had a lot of excellent questions. Once again, teacher, remember to use the QR code to answer the survey. We want you to participate in that, or go to the website and also check out our many other opportunities that we have. We have also sent to the schools an unsung hero spotlight video that you can use for Black History Month. So utilize it and also check out our resource page. Once again, on behalf of Dr. Bernice A. King and the King Center, thank you very much for coming to the Student with King today. Have a nice day.